Welcome everyone to Rudy's Roundtable. I have a very special guest with me today that I met through Toastmasters. She is an intuitive, an amazing speaker, and a new dear friend. Welcome, please, Helena, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So first off, just give me a little insight into you. I want to know just first off who you are. What's like your elevator pitch of just who you are, how you got here.
Yeah. I'm Helena, and I'm a witch.
I love it. Tell me more.
Well, it's funny. A couple years ago, not that long ago, maybe even last year, I remember I said to one of my friends, I was like, I think I'm a witch, and she was like, "We've all known that." Like, welcome to the party.
How did your friends and like the people around you know this before you? Did they just kind of see this, like sense it? How would they describe it?
I think it's more so I have like this energy of like a witch being burned at the stake, like paranoia, fear, or I had that most of my life of being seen in my power for who I was. And so I always wanted to make myself seem smaller or less powerful. I felt like I needed to fit in and I should be quieter, or I should be, just like attract less attention, or attract attention in a way that conformed to the way the world wanted women to have attention on them. And so I've done a lot of deconditioning in the last few years about stepping into my own power and not being afraid of it and how to use it in a way that is empowering for me. And in that process, I realized that I'm a witch. I guess I would, I've been into the esoteric arts my whole life. I'm a very spiritual person, but I also think it's an element of like, witches do magic. I have an ability to alchemize and mutate energy, to transform things. I'm a Scorpio. I have a lot of scorpionic power that's accessible to me. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, just I relate to this a lot, where there's this idea of almost dimming your light, right? And just that internal fear, that internal struggle, maybe to make other people uncomfortable or just being self-aware of, okay, maybe I need to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Was there a moment for you or an event or something that helped you transition into, no, I'm gonna shine bright?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's like an exact moment. Maybe it will come to me, but what it makes me think about is, growing up, people would always say to me, if someone gives you a compliment, make sure you give them one back because it's polite. And I think particularly for women, we aren't taught to say thank you, period. When someone tells you that you're great or you do a good job or you're, beautiful or whatever, thank you, period, end of sentence. And I think that I spent a lot of time trying to minimize myself to make other women especially feel comfortable. So like, saying, oh, no, like you're also so pretty, you're so great, or like, oh, it was nothing really, or make a self-deprecating comments, self-deprecating humor, and just kind of hiding certain parts of myself and only showing the parts of myself that felt safe in friendships and relationships, at work, especially in different organizations I was in, just try to make sure that other people felt comfortable because I had this inherent belief that that would keep me safe.
Yeah, I'm sensing something where there's a deep respect and love for other people, right?
Yeah.
But there is an element of almost truth, right?
Yeah.
And if it's like if someone says, "Hey, nice shirt back," that might not be the most truthful statement in the moment, but you kind of feel that you have to say that, kind of for the social norm, so to speak. And so, so that's interesting. Now, were you always that, like, as a kid? Like, was there a moment, like, I guess what forces or what kind of kept you maybe a little more stifled? And then how did you, like, learn to discover the beauty, the energy in yourself?
Let me think about it. Well, I grew up in the theater, so I was always encouraged to be the center of attention, or like I was never uncomfortable in the spotlight.
Right. And what y'all haven't seen, what y'all didn't see is that for the past like 30 minutes, we're just like jamming out to like all these theater songs. So
yes.
Fantastic singer. Thanks, pause.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about what were like the theater phases? I know just being a theater kid, can be a little weird sometimes. What was that experience for you?
Oh, I mean, ever since I was like in kindergarten, I just loved performing, like in the talent show, and I did community theater growing up, and I have a lot of friends who went on to do it professionally. And I think, I didn't do anything super serious with it, but it was, I think everything about me now that is made me successful in my career, in my life, with the people who are around me, with my ability to speak, with my confidence, all comes from being a theater kid.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how many, well, I love theater so much because of all the different art forms that come all into one, right? Music, lighting, acting, right? And so would you say that almost had an interesting foundation for you as to who you are today?
Yes, but I have to say, I don't identify as an astrologist, but I read astrological charts, and it's all I'm seeing right now is the answer to your question in my chart. Like I'm like, well, okay. my first house is in Leo, and then there's a stellium in my fifth house, which doesn't mean anything to you or maybe people listening, but I was born as a natural creative. And as someone who needs to express themselves to fulfill their soul's purpose.
And as far as now, this is interesting. I was listening to a song today. It's a religious song. It's called "We Are Many Parts," but there's a line that really stuck with me that says the gifts we are given to share. And so I just wanted to kind of share that. I think that's a little bit kind of what you're saying too, where along this journey of like discovering who we are and little Spider-Man quote here, with great power comes great responsibility. There is like a duty to share it with the world, right? Yeah. What do you see your role in sharing? I know you mentioned a little bit about the charts here and reading that. What do you share with the world? How do you interact in that way?
Well, it's become very clear for me in the last several years as I've developed as an intuitive that my gift is to drop into an ability to channel information through speaking. So the energy of my body runs from the sacral, the sexual, and vitality chakra up through and out of my throat. And so it is the wisdom and the truth and the power that is innate in my body and my soul from past life wisdom, from higher powers in this life, from my imprinting. It's designed to come out through speech. And so I always say I was born to be in front of an audience.
Born to perform, yeah. Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean I want to be on all the time. Like I'm actually a very private person. But if you put me in front of an audience or a stage, in all aspects of my life, in my corporate career, when I'm with a group of people, like in a social thing, when I'm for singing, performing, or doing something like Toastmasters, like that is where I believe like I'm meant to come alive. And and I know that because it feels so easy and because there's very little effort and because it simply just channels and comes through. And I can trust that part of myself to show up for me every single time. I have never been without words. I have never been in a situation where I wasn't able to perform. I've never not been able to perform under pressure, without a script.
That's interesting. Okay, so...
Yeah, so the part of us that we feel like we can trust to always be there for us, I think is an indicator of our gifts to the world.
And that would vary person to person, right?
I think so.
Their different fields or experiences, right? I mean, just being a performer myself, it just feels most natural being there. Or
thinking on my feet, I would say.
Okay, a little bit of improvisation too. I want to get to the past lives in a moment, right? But okay, so let's take a step back. So in discovering that, right, that power of like, I remember just from our conversation, like the sexual, like energy healing, right? Okay, how do you even discover that? How did you come across this? Was it discovery to discover you?
Yeah.
How was that?
Okay, well, so people who are psychic or intuitive like myself, there's different channels and ways to access the energy. People can be clairvoyant, so they see images and information. They can be clairaudient, they hear. You can be clairsentient and feel in your body. So I think part of it is the method that the information comes. And, my entire life, ever since as far as I can remember, I was extremely hyper aware of my sexual energy. And when I say that, I don't just mean like sex. Like it's not that. It's vitality, life force, what makes us feel alive. The connection that we have between human to human. You know, it can be friendships. It can be with, you know, within our families. It's like kind of the beating, the blood that flows through our bodies.
The energy of life, something like that.
It's life force energy. I also define sexuality or sexiness as knowing what you desire and knowing how you're going to get it. And that primal drive. So again, it's not just like another person that you're interested in. It's like, you know, this is my goal for myself and my life. And knowing how you're going to get there and being clear about what you want, that's what makes you feel alive. And that's what makes you feel inviting and enticing and magnetic to other people.
Sorry, that also implies like a sense of knowing yourself, right? Because you have to know who you are.
Absolutely.
And then what, you know, you want to, right?
Yeah, it's bringing together all the parts of you in a union. And when that union is centered and strong in the middle, it lights you up. And that is, you know, an activation of the soul and a reclamation of that divine sacral energy.
Like an alignment, right? Thoughts, words, and actions, all of it, right?
Yeah, as well as all of our energy centers, as well as all of the dimensions we exist in all at once.
Okay, we're gonna get to that. Okay. It was just so much. Okay, but okay, walk me through those first initial. You know, like you said, you just were so aware of it, right?
Yes.
Growing up.
Yeah, I was so aware. I was so aware of how I could see the energy aura field around my own body. I could see the energy of other people's bodies. I could see the colors. I could see the shapes. I just like knew that things were going to happen. I could tell what was going on with someone and in their head. And I saw a connection between humans and animals and nature. I felt really connected to like the wind and the air and water. And, you know, these are all signs of an intuitive child, but the reality is almost all children have this gift. And so many of us do. And as we age and we get these layers of fear, doubt, conditioning, ego, we kind of lose it like a muscle, but we can all access our intuition and go back to that pure form whenever we are ready.
Yeah, when you're a kid, I mean, there's just there's no extra weight, you know, there's that
you're open,
lightness.
you're trusting.
How was it ever too much? Was it ever overwhelming to
so
this?
Usually when children like myself are like this, you're told you're too sensitive, that you need to stop crying about everything, that you should toughen up, that you shouldn't be so afraid of things. I always had overwhelming surges of emotion around things. Like I would just cry before going to school, or just have, you know, bursts of anxiety, or feel a bunch of like a melancholy and a sadness, you know, that like kind of an old man would feel looking out in the world, but like in the body of a child. Like I just had this grief I would sort of carry. It was a collective grief. And so, you know, all of these things again, and boy, I had moments growing up that I recognize now are past life remembrances. So like I would travel with my family and go to certain places and have these, for example, one time, I went with my family it was like a national park in New Mexico, and there was a cave, and there were these petroglyphs in the cave. And I just went in there, and I was just like completely, I was brought back to, I was like with the people, the spirits in the cave. And then I could see the writing on the walls, and I was so locked into it. And my mom was like, okay, Helena, it's time to leave. And I just started crying and crying. And I was like, no, we can't leave. How can we just leave this place when these people are here and they're trying to talk to us? And so at that time growing up, I didn't have the language. I didn't understand what any of that was. I didn't really understand all this stuff until really the last 5 years. So
you had experienced this. You had no context, no like words to really, but
you
knew.
Yeah, and truthfully, I just thought everyone else was living that way. Okay. And I always explain to people that what my journey into being a psychic is like, not being one, but remembering and all these things, is that it's really just a letting go of the idea that I am like everyone else, and that a letting go of a belief system that everyone else thinks and acts like me, and that everyone else's energy is like mine. And once I was able to accept the fact that I need to take care of myself differently, and not everyone is as intuitive or empathetic or seeing the same things, it makes my life a lot easier.
Wow. There's a yeah, no, I'm just taking it all and taking it all in. Yeah. I can only just imagine, right? Those different stages, having these experiences and kind of like slowly kind of piecing things together, and then almost the realization, oh wait, like most people just aren't this way, and maybe there's a bit of shame or guilt of just like, am I different? Am I weird or whatever, right? How did you said like in the past 5 years you've really kind of gotten the language, kind of really coming to terms with this, and I relate to that a lot just because I'm a weird guy, especially being a magician and all that, right? It's taken a while for me to accept that my path is just different from other people.
But what I'll say to that is, those of us who say we're weird or like I always say to people when they're like, I sit and meditate and I have all these weird visions or thoughts or ideas and I don't know if I should listen to them. And what I say is, you should definitely start to listen to them. And then over time, what you realize is that is the truth. And everything else is not real. And so those of us who think we're weird or different or whatever, that is truth. And people being homogenous, or the people that are fitting in like everyone else or conforming, it's not like they're fake people, like they're not real. But what we realize as we wake up and become more conscious moving forward is that stepping into our truth and being different is what is sustainable and what will carry our humanity into the new world.
There's something so powerful in that, because I mean every point in the universe is a unique perspective, right? And so every person, all the amalgamation of like all the experiences is going to just produce a unique person, right?
Yeah.
And so with all that, you shouldn't get the same results, right? I mean, everyone really, if they really committed to like understanding them, would be, I hate to use the word weird, but they would just be so different. They would be so expressive, right? And I do think in a sense, whether it's society or whatever got to them, I think we all have that weight on us, right? There is a journey though that I think it sounds like you make that invitation to people through your work, and I think that's an important and really necessary thing here.
Yeah, I always tell people, there's nothing wrong with you, and that again, whatever these little voices are in your head that are telling you maybe you should do something, or the wherever your mind goes when you daydream, whatever you dream of at night, whatever parts of yourself you think are irrational or silly or not useful or irresponsible or unhelpful, I really believe that those are the parts of ourselves that are the truth. And it's not that we need to immediately quit our jobs and go do what that voice is saying today, but it's a remembrance of past life versions of ourselves that are living in alternate times and places. And I just think there's a constant invitation to come home to yourself that will never go away.
Bars. Man, okay. Constant invitation to come home to yourself. Yeah. And especially now, just as someone who's always, active on social media and everything, it's really, the implicit message is, hey, you're either not good enough or you're not fulfilled, you're not pretty enough, you're not strong enough, whatever.
Enough.
And just being enough, right?
That's my word for this year.
Yeah. And just knowing that, hey, you are enough, regardless of all these things. Like, just because I'm not in a boat with 10 Lambos, doesn't mean I can't be enough or whatever, right? But it does slowly, I think, create like a self-loathing, a self-hatred, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is true for a lot of people. I know it's true for me, right? Like, just being your own biggest critic, right?
Yes.
Just not, just accepting like, hey, this perfection really isn't something to be strived for,
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. You were like seeing my inner perfectionist, like I'm my own worst critic. I always say like I push myself harder than anyone would ever be able to push me. Like, but the word enough has come up for me so much in meditation and healing work this year, because I realized, I'm never going to be good enough for myself or for anyone else unless I decide that I'm good enough. Like, you don't get the validation that you're enough from anything outside of you. Like, it just doesn't, it won't last. It'll last for a moment if someone tells you you're good enough. But what ultimately, what ultimately lasts is you deciding that you're good enough for yourself, that you've done enough. And then there's like another piece of that too, I think, where it's like, have you given yourself enough? Have you met enough of your own needs?
Have you given yourself enough and met your own needs?
It's like, I always say to myself, I have done enough, and have I given myself enough? It's a 2-part question. Because only you know what your true needs are and if they've been met.
That's something I've been working on too right now, because so I get it from my mother, who's one of the best examples of being service to others, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the church, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it's always been a balance of being there to serve others, right? But also, hey, at the end of the day, I can't help other people if I don't help myself,
Yes.
if I don't make time for myself, show up for myself.
Totally.
I mean, a great example for me is just working out, just going on runs, just staying active. That to me is just a constant, almost like cleansing, or just like, hey, like, okay, I did this, right, for me, right? And it's a time to, I mean, really, of course, like, it benefits other people, but it's a thing I do for me. And just one example, I think that's kind of what you're saying, if I get it right.
Yeah.
What is something that you do to show up for yourself? I don't know. Do you journal? I don't know what do you do for yourself?
I definitely work out like every day. That's definitely a huge thing for me. It's just like moving my body and eating a diet that has a lot of I call it like living foods. Like, when I put things from the earth, like pure, high quality, real foods into my body, I'm more connected to the earth, to nature, and therefore to Goddess, to God. And it's easier for me to be a channel.
It reminds me of, I just love making connections, right? So to me, when I worked in the corporate world, it was always so different, like from working to like getting paid, right? There's such, all these different steps, all these layers. It's so disconnected.
Yeah.
When I started doing street magic was when it felt crazy. And this is with my other street magicians. It was essentially like hunting in a sense, because I was like out in the wild on the street, right?
Yeah.
Meeting strangers, but I had to do something to a stranger and then eventually, get, I don't know, $20, right, as a tip. And the interaction of doing something for someone and then directly getting, paid for it, like that space was just,
it makes so much sense.
It can't be more intimate, right? It's like literally, I do this for you, boom, right?
And you said the word intimate, and you described having a desire and knowing what you're going to do to get it met. Did you feel like you felt turned on, sexy, and alive during that time? Do you feel like your sexual energy was a part of that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, at least for me, that's one of the moments where I feel most alive.
Yeah.
And also, I love the sense of danger, just not knowing. There was a fight that broke out on my thing the other week, so like anything can happen, right?
Yeah.
But I wanted to make that connection with the food, right? Where, especially with processed foods, right? Like, you don't know where some of these things are coming from. There's so many stages, but the closer you can get to something, the most ideal thing would be go pick a banana from a tree, right?
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not perfect. I definitely eat whatever, but it's like at the same time, there's a direct correlation between how alive I feel, how in my body I feel when I'm eating foods that are also alive,
I want to switch gears because I have an interesting, I'm so curious in this. So we mentioned past lives a couple times. So what can you tell me about either first making this realization, I don't know, just past lives, just go, I'm just so intrigued. I'm so intrigued.
Well, all of my intuitive work is rooted in past life theory. And so I had past life memories, again, since I was a child. I didn't know that's what they were. But I've always been very, very aware of past lives, past roles I played. Other worlds, lives, stories I was in before this life. But the reason why past lives became such a big part of my current life experience and my work is because I realized that, people can do all the therapy they want in this life, and you can do all these things to heal yourself in this life, but you ultimately aren't really, at least for me, I wasn't able to find peace and understanding and acceptance of myself and the things that were activating or triggering to me, or what caused my stress, anxiety, what caused the challenges in my life, until I began to find the link between my past lives and the karmic patterns I am experiencing and repeating in this life. And
okay,
then,
break down a little bit of that for me. So when you say these patterns, like
so in past life
or,
theory, you know, there's many cultures, religions, you know, groups of people all over the world that have sort of their own version of past life theory. But the idea is that the soul, you would have to believe in a soul for this. The soul is choosing to reincarnate over and over again. So we've lived many lives with the same soul. And in those past lives, we had different bodies. We could have been a different gender. We could have been, you know, looked completely different, lived in a different part of the world, had a completely different life. But our soul is the same, and the soul remembers. And so in this life, our soul is so much older and wiser than the ego mind that we have. And it has memories, and it has traumas. So it has things that, you know, we might have what we think is an irrational fear in this life, like a fear of swimming. Well, maybe in a past life we drowned, and our soul remembers that. And then we also have contracts, relationships, and bonds with other people. So in this life, you know, you might have a difficult relationship with your sibling. Well, maybe in a past life they were your parent. And you have unfinished karmic business with them that your soul chose to come back in this life in a different way, different capacity, because it ultimately does want to find peace and healing. And then, you know, same for romantic things. Like sometimes people say, I met someone, I feel like I know them my whole life. Well, you might have met them again and you knew them in a past life. And so this is like, I'm saying this in such a general overview way. Like there's so much more I can go into, so much like evidence and explanations to it all. But that's sort of the overall theory, is that our soul has chosen to come into this life for a specific reason, in this time, in this place, with these people. And it has some kind of mission, and it has some kind of healing that it wants to be done. And that can help us to understand some of the situations we find ourselves in, because the idea of karma, in a way, is that we are going to repeat and attract the same patterns, circumstances, people, relationships, situations, until we learn the lesson from them, until we heal them, until we get closure from them. And so, we're constantly, for me personally, I believe that almost everything, all the people, all our situations in our life can be explained with some kind of past life link. Which, you know, that doesn't have to be everyone's belief system or cup of tea, but that's what is rooted in my work. And so as a psychic, I can read people, and I can see past life experiences that they're in. And I can see it in their charts as well. But I mean, if I didn't have the charts, I would still be able to go back and see.
All right. So I'm just taking it all as like a tidal wave, right? Yeah. But the reason I'm so interested in this, and what a great breakdown, even though it was a general. I can imagine that you could go, you know, super deep into this.
There's so many books too I could recommend.
No, please do. So I came across this in an altered state of consciousness. Just this idea, this phrase of, and I think this is why I'm not so much afraid of death. I just accept death, right? Yeah. Is I've died before, I'll die again. Yeah. I lived before, I will live again, right? Yeah. And I don't know if it's reincarnation from my idea, but I came across the same idea though of like the soul in us is like, I don't even know how to explain this, right? But the gender is just like one expression of it, right? Just in this body, in this moment, right? But this soul is like eternal. Yeah. What I'm curious about is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit too, is it makes perfect sense. There was this thing I read of the universe will keep trying to show you a lesson until you really have learned it. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, whether it be in finances, in relationships, in whatever, you know, addiction even, right? Yep. The universe will somehow just, if there's a wound, it'll just keep attacking it. Like it'll just keep manifesting until you actually address it fully and really heal from it. I mean, I've seen that just in my own life. But it would make sense, because I think everything's fractal in every direction, that would apply to the soul as well. Yeah. Right? And so if whatever things that wasn't healed, both in the positive and the negative, right? Mm-hmm. Achievements, accomplishments, or I don't use the word deficiencies, but, you know, things that need healing, we carry that on, right?
Yes. I think that is absolutely true, and I agree with that. But what I would be careful with is then people will sometimes identify with a victim story.
Ooh,
where
yeah,
they'll say, well, because of my past life thing, or they'll just be like, this is this pattern that I'm in, and this bad thing keeps happening to me because I need to break it. But then I also think like I do believe in free will very strongly. So I don't think that we're destined to, it's a mix of a lot of things, and I don't have all the answers, but.
What, you don't?
But I'm also like kind of inherently a Buddhist, where I believe that we're all kind of, the human experience is to suffer.
Yeah.
Like that. So it's like, there's that. And also, I don't think that we're destined for our challenges, that we can change that.
Yeah.
In any moment we can go into the vortex and change our energetic state and change our life. So it's like a combination of a lot of different things.
And let's not forget that life is suffering. That's just the first of the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism, right? Like there's like the acceptance and the personal responsibility and power that you have to react to that, right?
Yeah. Totally. I always say we're all here to suffer, but guess what? We choose who we suffer with.
Yeah.
And we choose how, we choose the games we play while we're suffering. we choose what parties we want to have while we're suffering. The songs we sing. Yeah, we choose what we want to do with our time. I mean, there's freedom, there's free will in the suffering, and we're all in it together. So it can be a gift, and it can be a way to feel more connected to other people.
I watched on November the 5th, if you've ever seen V for Vendetta or have heard of this.
Yes,
right?
a long time ago.
This is what I spoke on at Toastmasters, right?
Cool.
But I watch it every year on the 5th of November because that's like the day of the movie. But there's a scene in the movie where the character V lays out this huge domino sequence, right, to form like V and everything, right? But then I was thinking, okay, how could this be like a metaphor for life or for this experience? And because I was between free will, determinism, right? Like, hey, what is really the case here? And what I came up with, and this is like the Rudy crazy theory, is that it's a mix of like both. It's like 50-50 right down the line. And my explanation is that we are in a series of dominoes, right? In the past, with our parents, our past lives, the time we're in, right? Like just all our environment, right? And that determines some of it, right? I'm a Latino, like in this world, right? But then there is like your domino will fall, right? Let's call it like death, right? You're going to live and die. But what happens during that fall, I think, is where that free will comes from. And you actually have the power to shape, okay, in what direction, so it's a mix of both determinism, like, we are, I would think so, like dominoes in a sequence, but there is a lot of freedom within this moment.
That's the alchemy.
Yeah, okay.
That's that power that we all have to transform energy. That's what one of my meditations that you're going to edit for me is exactly about.
Oh, wow, okay.
So you'll have access, yeah.
So tell me more now. Okay, obviously I'm a magician, right? Like mentalist, right?
So you know about alchemy?
Somewhat, right? Tell me, in your experience, what is? I know you mentioned like sex magic before. What does magic mean to you? What is that expression here?
What does magic mean to me?
Yeah.
I guess what comes through also is just truth again. Like our inherent truth and power is magic. And, love is magic. But yeah, I think it's like magic is what's the truth inside all of us. And that it's a power.
And it's a mix of almost like, like alchemy, transfiguration, like illusion, like it's
like the
freedom
freedom that no one can take away from you. Like you can have so many things stripped from you, taken from you that you might identify with, but ultimately there is like this magic inside of you. I think it is probably synonymous with that sexual life force energy.
I was actually just thinking the way you described like that sexual life energy coming out and then manifesting it through speech. My theory has always been that the true magic of this world is rhetoric, is our words. Because if you are skilled in your words, if you have that skill of intention and direction, like bodily, like if it's all aligned, you can bring things about. And there's like a thing where it's like they call them spells because we're spelling, right, with letters and words and all that. I think there's something to that. And I think there's something in the power of I know it's so, speaking truth to power or whatever, right? But I do think there is something there. But it's defense against the dark arts in Harry Potter, right? Like we've seen it throughout history, right? Used for good to elevate people. We still used to demonize and, destroy people. So the
words are so powerful.
Yeah. And so, well, what do you think about, because I know you love poetry, right? I saw a couple poems there. What is your relationship to the spoken word, to words?
I think, words are very powerful. I think thoughts are even more powerful, maybe the words inside our heads. I always say, our thoughts create our reality. Mm-hmm. I always say if you want to change your outsides, you need to change your insides first. Mm-hmm. And so I think the words that we speak to ourselves and the way that we address ourselves throughout the day are even more powerful. First we, I think, identify like a self-concept. Mm-hmm. What do we love ourselves or do we hate ourselves? And maybe it's different parts of ourselves that have different charges around that. And then it becomes, what does my inner world look like? Is it safe in there? Is it okay in there? 'Cause some people, it's not okay in there. It's not a safe thing for them to close their eyes and sit alone for 10 minutes. That's like not safe. And so becoming aware of what's going on in there and then changing I think through a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, it's finding the pause, the moment between the reaction and the action, like finding the space in between is what I call it, that magic space. And then that's when we start to become aware and we can change some of those thoughts and neural pathways. We can pause and we can say, no, I'm going to reframe that thought. I'm not going to think that. Or I'm going to speak differently to myself. Or I'm going to not judge that, but I'm going to pause and take that, I'm not going to have that judgment about that person. And then for me, at least, all that has to happen before the words out of my mouth start to change.
Wow.
Like I can say, oh, I'm doing great today. But if I'm not really, it doesn't have any power. So it is the words. They are so powerful, but it's almost like that's the last thing to me, from a lot of other things that we become aware of. And the spell starts from within and comes out.
Right.
And I also think that there are, I think you and I might be people who identify with our words being one of our gifts and strengths. But I know from looking at a lot of different people's charts and designs that some people, the physical body, the way they move their body in a nonverbal way is more of the way that might cast a spell, or their power with communicating with the universe. I think there's different ways to express the same magic.
Yes. Or even being skilled with something, right? Like musicians or like artists,
totally.
right? Like
making music.
Sometimes the right painting is louder than any word. It's louder than any speech, you know? The right song can hit harder than, like many things, like I'm thinking of dancers, right? Like within ballets or just, like people just truly like, they have such like they know how to use their whole body as an instrument, right? Like, and just that fascination of all the different, it's like the same core truth, right? Just expressed through the different ways.
And physical touch. People who massage therapists.
That too. I was thinking of the love languages, right? Like that was one of the love languages.
Yeah, but communicating in different ways. Yeah.
What does it feel like? Because I know you hosted one last month. Like these sessions where, like, you're a leader, you're an organizer, putting these things together. What is it like to organize that, to lead that? And what's the next one coming up?
Yes. I teach a group class. It's usually a combination of psychic work, past life work, and then human design and astrology. And I do it every other month in Austin, but I'm working on having a Zoom option for people who don't live here. And the next one is December 11th, and it will be human design for the holidays, because human design is all about the type of human design that I practice and teach, which is different from mainstream human design. So it's Zen human design, which
what makes it different? I'm just curious.
There's some philosophical differences, I think, in the overall, like what you're trying to glean from the chart. I would say Zen human design is about conscious relating. That's kind of, what I would say. Okay. So becoming more self-aware becoming more aware and conscious of yourself, so that when you so that you can show up and relate to others in a way that's more compassionate and understanding, and you can regulate your energy better in your relationships, and then you can understand and be more accepting and compassionate about the other people you're in relationships with. And all that comes from learning about how the energy moves and flows through the body. I would say that mainstream human design or Jovian human design is more so rooted in what they call living your design. So the idea is like, living and being the most powerful version of yourself, living your best life, being like self-actualized, which I think there's a lot of really helpful, important information in all of that. But I think it becomes, I could get all into this stuff, but I
please.
Well, I just think it becomes, it is only helpful to a point, because people start to say, well, I am or I'm not living my design. Well, you're you every day, all day long. And, again, people start identifying with things that are outside of themselves, and then they start doubting themselves, thinking they're not good enough. They're not doing enough. And so Zen human design, I feel, is a more feminine gray area system rather than a black and white. This is is right and wrong. And so anyway, I got on a tangent. So I combine, so the December 11th class is using that system. So everyone gets a chart based on their birth data. And I teach people how to read the chart and how to understand how to relate to people in their lives, friends, family, lovers, based on the chart that they have, so they can conserve their own energy, and they know what people are healthy to have around them and why not, how to protect their energy, and then how to care for the people they love. Because I think even if you enjoy the holidays, it's a time of, it can be stressful, it can be challenging, just to like relate and have energy boundaries, because it can be intense.
And there's so much going on, and then you're in like the dead of some people get seasonal depression too, and that's like dead of winter, and just the pressure of many times people wanting to live up to what their family expectations may be, or just family tensions.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm curious so just going one step back, I do like that, kind of like with like the past lives things, where you don't want someone to be in like a victim mindset because of a past life trauma or something that needs to be healed. I like that this as well kind of gives people like a practical thing to work on. It gives someone like a practical thing to communicate and really to the people. Mm-hmm. What has it been like for you to actually be in that role of I don't know what the right word would be, like a teacher, like a leader there? Like, what is that like when you're guiding these sessions, these classes?
Every single time I have a class, at the end of it, I'm like, I hope that was good. I don't come to them and I'm like, this is going to be the best thing. Like, it's just not how it is. I'm always like, well, I hope like someone liked this. Like, I don't know. I definitely have some imposter syndrome still, but not even that. I just feel like it can be so esoteric. I mean, truthfully, to answer your question, I'm channeling. Okay. So I receive the information usually before, a week or two or less before the class on what will be in it. And I write that all down and I create my outline. And I trust that when I show up, it's going to come out correctly. And I always over prepare, because that's how I always have extra pages. I used to teach 7th grade. So
really? Okay. Yeah.
So it's like a lesson plan for me. Like I always have extra activities, extra like things built in case like there's extra time. I always want to have a lot of options ready for like if I feel like it's flowing a certain way and I want to do different activities, whatever. And so I over prepare. And then I always want to make sure there's space for interactivity, lots of questions. I never want to just be sitting there and talking the whole time. I always want to have a discussion.
Like engaging, people,
I want people to feel, because the best way to learn, especially with human design or really any of this stuff, the best way to learn is to listen to other people's experiences. And so I'm learning just as much as the people in the class, because I'm hearing them share their perspective. And I am me, I am my design. I don't know what it's like to have a different kind of design. So I don't have the ability to teach someone who's different from me and say, this is what it should feel like. I never do that. I say, this is the idea behind this. This is like, what it could be like. And now who would like to share about what it feels like for them? And I'm a very like question-based teacher.
That's a wise way to approach it, because that way, yeah, like, and I can admire like the humility of it too, right? Like, this is, you're channeling something greater, right? And also trying to make it so that people receive like the purest form of it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because so much of this stuff in the spiritual community, whatever, like, it's just so bad, and it's so jaded, and it's so it's like ego and capitalism and like all these things, and it's just like you're taking away. It should be pure and simple. That's what the information should be. It should be pure and simple. And I just want to create and facilitate a space for people to receive the information, and then if it's helpful for them, great. And if certain things aren't helpful for them, they don't have to take that with them. And just kind of create a space to learn and listen from other people as well. But again, there's always like these main takeaways, like there's nothing wrong with you, you don't have to, like, there's always a few takeaways I want everyone to leave the class and understand, like, philosophically about what we're talking about. And I do, even though I have imposter syndrome and I never know at the end of the class if anyone liked anything or what I said.
You're like, y'all got that?
I don't know. But some people will come up to me and they always say, I've never heard it explained like that, and it finally made sense. And that to me is how I know, like, I want to keep doing the work.
And I think it goes into part of like your natural, design of or maybe we don't use that word, of being somewhat of a performer, right? But also like a leader, right? Like, just in that dynamic. I'm really curious, just as someone who has performed for a bunch of kids and, all ages, seventh graders can be pretty daunting to perform for. So what was that like teaching? And what was that experience like?
Well, yes.
She's like,
Well, I taught at an all-girls school once, and I just remember like the terror every day of walking into the class and wondering if they were going to like my outfit. Was like the most scariest part of the entire job. Like, they would be like, some days I wouldn't wear makeup, or I would like, and they'd be like, well, oh, Miss H, like, you look different today. And I would be like, different how? And they'd be like, you look more natural. And I'd be like,
the shade.
Yeah. But then they'd be like, no, like, you should look like this every day. Like, it looks better. And I'm like, so wait, so like, my makeup doesn't look good when I it's just like a lot.
Or they're like that's that's an interesting shirt.
Yeah, or they'd be like, I like your shoes, and I'd be like, do you?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh man, I can imagine the sass,
So I would say like that is what sticks out to me. Is the outfit choices and but I mean, it's extremely, I miss working with young people. I love working with children and young people because I think it keeps you young, and you know what's going on in the world. You understand things from the perspective of the future of the world. I think it's such a gift to be around young people like that, and it keeps you energized and keeps you creative. It keeps you open-minded. It keeps you flexible and in like kind of a growth mindset. So I definitely intend to, like, later on in my career, go back and work with children in some capacity.
Even if it's sometimes we're going to throw something at them.
Well, I've never done that, but
I just
there have been bribes.
I really knew this 100 on my essay.
Yeah, there have been bribes. There have been unorthodox classroom control methods. I'll say that.
I love this.
Yeah.
So tell me, as we're winding down, we did a lot of great topics and a lot of serious topics too, but I want to get more light, more fun here.
Yeah.
So tell me more about, like, okay, when you're not doing all the sex magic, when you're not doing, I'm not sure how much of your time is spent, it's just 5% of my time is not done.
That's so funny.
What do you enjoy? I know, being here in Austin, what do you enjoy about the city? What do you enjoy about, I don't know, are you a foodie? Do you like traveling? What do you enjoy?
I love, what I love? Going to a movie by myself.
I did not have that on the list. Movie by yourself. A little solo treat.
Like, if I have a Friday night with no plans, I'm like, yes, I'm going to go see a weird art film that no one wants to go see but me. And I'm going to sit by myself. And I'm not going to tell anyone. Because if I tell people, they're going to want to come.
Yeah.
And I want to be by myself.
You're like, no, get away from this is the point.
I'm very introverted. And I have so many friends and I love all my friends. But I am like a social butterfly introvert. Like,
I was like, yeah, this sounds like.
I know it's very hard to explain, but it's
here.
like, I always have like 3 things I could do, like on a night or whatever. And I always just want to like be by myself. But I mean, I know I love hanging out with people, my friends and stuff. But I just really cherish time spent alone. So yeah, so I feel like, but the point is, I think Austin has like really good, like different kind of artsy theaters and stuff. So I like doing that. I love just like going for a long walk, like on the Greenway, walking in nature. I have some like secret hiking spots.
Okay. And do you do that with music? No music? Do you like anything
like
specific?
Like a podcast or a book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what else. I love like going to the farmer's market on the weekends. I love like going and getting like really high quality like local food and then like cooking a meal with it.
That's a cool vibe. Well, I mean, you're in the right place for that.
Yes.
Here, yeah. Man, okay, fascinating.
I mean, when it's sunny, I just want to lay out in the sun all day and tan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Barton Springs?
Yeah, Barton. Or the pool, or anywhere, yeah. Hippie Hollow.
Oh, yeah, of course, of course, yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
What about the music? Do you enjoy any of the music in Austin?
I love music. I love live music. I love seeing shows. But I don't like know like the names of any band. Like I am just like that person that like my friends are just like, we're seeing a show tonight, and I'm like, is it $30 or less? Yes, I'll come. And like I appreciate it. I love it. I think I have great taste in music, but I am just like not a person who is like, I follow these bands. Like I just don't have capacity for that in my mind. Probably because it's like thinking about stars and planets. But I'm always down. Like I'm a friend who was like at the show, but I just couldn't tell you who was playing at the show.
You know who's playing or like the history, but like you'll enjoy the show.
Yeah, but what like I mean like I feel like I just have a lot of friends who are like in the know. Like one of my best friends, her fiance is like a drummer in a band, like a lot of bands in Austin. So like she's like, he's playing at this venue and it's this band. I'm like, great. And like, like I just, so what's the word? Like, not like I get around. That's a bad phrase, but like, I'm on the scene.
Okay. You're on the scene.
I'm cool.
Well, I mean.
But I just don't know the names of anything.
I mean, you're also saying that, like, when you have like 3 or 4 different things you can do in a night, and you're like, I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah.
Can you be cool if you don't go out to these events? What? You got to go out to these events. You got to go out to these events.
I think it's a balance.
Yeah.
And also with daylight savings, if I don't have the plan before 5:30, I'm not leaving my house. Once it gets dark, I'm in.
I need this in writing. Oh, wait, no. Oh, after it's dark.
Yeah, once it gets dark outside, like, oh, no, I mean, like, I'm in my house. Like, I'm not leaving.
Oh, okay.
But if you tell me the plan, like, when the sun's still up, like, okay, great, I'll be there.
Are you more an early bird, night owl? How would you describe it?
I wake up when the sun rises.
Okay.
And turn in when the sun sets.
Really? Okay, so you really follow the sun.
Yeah, so my circadian rhythm, I think, really shifts in the seasons. Like in the summer, it's harder for me to wake up early. I like sleep in a little more, and I like will stay up pretty, like not like super late, but I'll stay up later. Yeah. In the winter, like I can be in bed by 9:30, but I'll wake up at like 5 naturally. Like my body just like I just naturally adjust.
I found that so fascinating. So I'm like through and through a night owl.
I could tell.
Like and like I get most of my work done. I don't know, from like 8 p.m. to like 11 p.m. That's like my peak hours of
I don't think I'm like 10 a.m. is my best time.
Yeah.
10 to noon. 10 to 2.
For me, this is so cool because it's maybe like a little bit like the past life thing, right?
Yes.
But just out of the box, right? As humans.
It's actually probably in your charts, and I can see that and tell you that, yeah.
To be determined. But I'm just so fascinated how all of us come out of the box and like our experiences shape us and everything. And you've been so illuminating throughout all this. And so I just want to say thank you for the time. I know you had several other things you could be doing, like going to watch a movie by your own tonight. But I'm glad you decided to join me on the podcast today. Anything else you want to share? Anything else you want to say to the viewers before we wrap up? Take a moment.
Well, I want to thank you for like being a safe person to share this kind of information with, because it's very special to talk about, our past life work, my intuitive work, sex magic work. You have to be a safe man to be able to share this information with. So I appreciate that. And yeah, people can do one-on-one readings with me. People can come to my classes every other month. And I'm working on creating some guided meditations for sex magic, as well as, a lot of the other energetic practices that I use on a daily basis. And I'm going to have those available on my website in the new year.
Fantastic. Well, it's something we can all look forward to.
Yeah.
Thank you again. See you guys next time.